Welcome everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching the budget special on Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. We're joining you live from the CNN News 18 and Federal Bank Primetime studio. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman presented her first budget of the Modi 3.0 Sarkar, which also marked her 7th consecutive budget presentation. The FM outlined 9 priorities of the government along with the 4 main target groups that are, of course, youth, Kisan, women and the poor. The highlight of the budget was the massive thrust on job creation, skilling and measures to boost MSME sector further. Apart from this, Finance Minister also granted special wishes of the NDA allies. Chandrababu Naidu and Nitish Kumar, both Bihar and Andhra Pradesh, were given major funding. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has hailed the budget, saying it strengthens all sectors and empowers the neo-middle class. But the opposition claims that the government has taken a leaf out of Congress's Nyay Patra on the jobs aspect and that only 2 people have been favoured while other states have been neglected. So does the NDA 3.0 first budget lay the roadmap for a Viksit Bharat or has it fallen short? We'll take that question to our guests and experts joining us in just a bit. First up, as expected, the big thrust was on job creation and skilling. So let me just break down the attempt here to benefit the youth seeking skilled jobs. Direct benefit transfer of 1 month's salary in 3 installments up to 15,000 rupees to first-time employees registered in EPFO. For job creation in manufacturing sector, incentive to employee and employer both in the first 4 years of employment. In support to employers further, reimbursement up to 3,000 rupees per month for 2 years towards EPFO contribution for each additional employee hired. 20 lakh youth to be skilled over a period of 5 years and 1 lakh students will get internship opportunities in top 500 companies in the next 5 years. Now, the government has also announced some special incentives for working women and students, and there is more when it comes to youth again. So, setting up of working women's hostels and creches in collaboration with the industry. Overall, 3 lakh crore rupees go into schemes benefiting women and girls alone. Model Skill Loan Scheme has been revised to facilitate loans up to 7.5 lakhs rupees now. And 1 lakh students will get 3% of the loan amount annual interest subvention benefit for loans up to 10 lakh rupees for higher education in domestic institutions. Boosting MSMEs has been a work in progress, especially since COVID. Now, these are some of the measures that have been announced today. The government has announced a new mechanism for bank credit in manufacturing, which will operate on the pooling of credit risks of such entities. A separately constituted self-financing guarantee fund will provide guarantee cover up to 100 crore rupees to each applicant. Under the Mudra scheme, MSMEs will now be able to avail loans up to 20 lakh rupees instead of 10 lakh rupees. The government will lower the turnover threshold for mandatory onboarding on the TRDS platform from 500 crores to 250 crores. Apart from this, financial support for setting up 50 multi-product food irradiation units will be provided. The government said it will also set up hubs to promote exports through e-commerce medium in public-private partnership mode. Keeping in sync with coalition partner demands, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman announced special packages of sorts for Bihar and Andhra Pradesh. Not surprising, this is something they just had to do this time around. So a quick breakup of what each state is getting. 15,000 crore for construction and development of Amaravati as the sole capital of Andhra Pradesh. Finance Minister promised grants for the backward regions, Rayalaseema, Prakasam and North Coastal Andhra regions. The grants will be as per the Andhra Pradesh Reorganization Act. Finance Minister said it's fully committed to early completion and financing of the Polavaram irrigation project. She also said and announced a package for Vizag-Chennai Industrial Corridor. Very quickly, let me also take you through the announcements that have been made for Bihar. 26,000 crore rupee package to support the development of road connectivity projects. Government will also set up airports, medical colleges and sports infrastructure in the state. Finance Minister outlined plans to replicate the Kashi model in Mahabodhi Temple corridor in Bodh Gaya. and Vishnupad Temple corridor in Gaya. The government said it will develop Nalanda and Ranchi as tourist centers and revive Nalanda University to its glorious stature. It was only recently inaugurated as well. The government will also aid development of an industrial node at Gaya, part of the Amritsar-Kolkata industrial corridor. 11,000 crore rupees for the to deal with flood-related disasters that Bihar is all too familiar with. So those were some of the political announcements, but by and large, we want to talk about whether this budget is adding to the vision of Viksit Bharat that has been outlaid by Narendra Modi. That and more is coming up with our guests. First up, I want to go across to Anupriya Patel, MOS Health and Family Welfare, joining us. Thanks a lot, Anupriya ji, for your time. I do want to begin with some of the criticisms that are coming in from the opposition side on this budget. You must have heard some of those comments already. They're saying, for example, the Congress says that this is a copy-paste effort. A lot of what they had promised to the youth is what the government is now introducing belatedly, and that's a message that the NDA has accepted out of this recent general elections verdict. Your response on that?
आपकी आवाज थोड़ा क्रैक हो रही है, बट मुझे जो थोड़ा बहुत समझ में आया, शायद इंटर्नशिप प्रोग्राम की आप बात कर रही हैं।
मैं इंटर्नशिप प्रोग्राम की भी बात करूंगी।
बात तो ये है कि अगर
जी अनुप्रिया जी, मैं इंटर्नशिप प्रोग्राम की भी बात करूंगी। पहले मैं एक उत्तर आपसे लेना चाहती थी जो पॉलिटिक्स हो रही है। कांग्रेस ने बोला ये कॉपी पेस्ट बजट है, उनकी जो स्कीम्स थी उनके न्याय पत्र में वो गवर्नमेंट अब इम्प्लीमेंट कर रही है। यूथ को जो इंसेंटिव्स दिए गए हैं वो उनकी डिमांड थी।
देखिए, कांग्रेस पार्टी विपक्ष में है और विपक्ष का काम ही होता है खामियां निकालना। ये बजट एक फ्यूचरिस्टिक बजट है, एक प्रोग्रेसिव बजट है, और अगर कांग्रेस पार्टी को ऐसा लगता भी है कि उन्होंने किसी विषय को उठाया था और वो बजट का हिस्सा है, तो मुझे लगता है कि कांग्रेस पार्टी को उसका स्वागत करना चाहिए, ना कि उसकी आलोचना करना चाहिए।
और वो ये भी कह रहे हैं कि बिहार और आंध्र प्रदेश के अलावा बाकी किसी स्टेट को बजट में कुछ नहीं मिला, सिर्फ अपने एलाइज को ही दिया है। आप भी एनडीए में एलाय हैं।
देखिए, पहले तो मैं बिहार और आंध्र प्रदेश के संदर्भ में कहना चाहती हूँ कि जो इन दोनों राज्यों की मांगे हैं, ये कोई नई मांग नहीं है। ऐसा नहीं है कि आंध्र प्रदेश या बिहार की जो पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज आज एनडीए अलायंस में हैं, तो अलायंस में आने के बाद या सरकार में गठन के बाद उन्होंने कोई नई डिमांड उठाई हो। आंध्र प्रदेश के 2 टुकड़े करने का काम तो कांग्रेस पार्टी ने ही किया था। आंध्र प्रदेश रीऑर्गेनाइजेशन एक्ट के हिसाब से जो आंध्र प्रदेश को मिलना चाहिए था वो धन कांग्रेस पार्टी ने क्यों उपलब्ध नहीं कराया। जहां तक बिहार की बात है, तो झारखंड से अलग होने के बाद बिहार राज्य की वित्तीय स्थिति जो है वो काफी हद तक कमजोर हो चुकी है, और ऐसे में जो बिहार को एक स्पेशल पैकेज की आवश्यकता थी, ये सब पुरानी मांगे हैं और बिहार और आंध्र प्रदेश की जनता को इसकी आवश्यकता थी। मुझे खुशी है कि मेरी सरकार ने अपने बजट पे इसका ख्याल रखा है। यदि कांग्रेस की सरकार संवेदनशील होती इन दोनों राज्यों की जनता के प्रति, तो निश्चित रूप से उन्होंने अपने कार्यकाल में ही इसका समाधान कर दिया होता। और तीसरी बात ये कि देश का बजट जब आता है तो वो पूरे देश के लिए आता है, उसमें कभी भी अलग अलग एक एक राज्य यूटी की चर्चा नहीं की जाती है। तो मुझे लगता है कि इस बात में बहुत कोई गंभीरता नहीं है जो बात कांग्रेस पार्टी उठा रही है।
अनुप्रिया जी, बहुत बड़ा सवाल ये है कि ये जो अभी जनरल इलेक्शंस के जो रिजल्ट्स आए हैं उसमें एनडीए को थोड़ा सा झटका मिला है, उसके बाद ये पहला बजट है। तो क्या आपको लगता है कि आपके लिए, आपसे मेरा मतलब है एनडीए के लिए, सबके लिए जो एनडीए में जो एलाइज हैं उनके लिए चैलेंज है कि जनता ने एक तरह से जो मैसेज दिया है उसको स्वीकार करना है और उस मैसेज पे काम करना है। क्या आपको लगता है इस बजट में उसको ध्यान में रखा गया है?
पहली बात तो मैं ये कह दूं कि देश में 62 वर्षों के बाद कोई ऐसा गठबंधन है, कोई ऐसी सरकार है जिसने तीसरी बार अपने आप को रिपीट किया है, और ये सामान्य उपलब्धि नहीं है, ये बहुत बड़ी उपलब्धि है। देश की जनता ने तीसरी बार हमारे गठबंधन के ऊपर और प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी के नेतृत्व के ऊपर अपना विश्वास दिखाया है। दूसरी बात ये कि हमारी सरकार ने हमेशा से कहा है कि युवा, किसान, महिला, गरीब ये हमारी प्राथमिकता है। और आज के बजट को भी आप देखिए तो हमारा जो बड़ा एक देश के लिए विजन है विकसित भारत का, एक आत्मनिर्भर भारत का, उसको ध्यान में रखते हुए जो हमारे ये 4 पिलर्स हैं, युवा, किसान, महिला और गरीब, इन पर केंद्रित होकर हमने काम किया है। और जब हम इनकी बात करते हैं तो पूरे देश की जो जनता है उसमें हमारी महिला, किसान, युवा, गरीब सबकी आकांक्षाओं को पूरा करने के लिए इस बजट में अलग अलग प्रावधान किए गए हैं। हमने कृषि के लिए, आप देखिए कि कृषि के लिए अब आने वाले समय में, जैसे मैं एक उदाहरण दूं, आने वाला समय नेचुरल फार्मिंग का है, तो हमने ये प्रावधान किया है कि 2 करोड़ किसानों को हम नेचुरल फार्मिंग के साथ जोड़ने का काम करेंगे। या डिजिटल क्रॉप सर्वे की बात हो, या तिलहन या दलहन के क्षेत्र में जो हमें अपने देश को आत्मनिर्भर बनाना है उसका विषय हो, या इसके साथ ही जो हम देश में सब्जियों के उत्पादन को बढ़ाने के लिए वेजिटेबल क्लस्टर बनाने की बात कर रहे हैं। युवाओं को लेकर उनका भविष्य कैसे उज्जवल हो, कैसे हमारे युवाओं के पास वो स्किल सेट हो जिसके कारण उनकी एम्प्लॉयबिलिटी बढ़े, उसके लिए हम ये कार्यक्रम लेकर आए। 20 लाख युवाओं को हम स्किल सेट देना चाहते हैं। युवाओं के लिए एक हमेशा समस्या होती है जब किसी भी एकेडमिक इंस्टीट्यूशन से बच्चे निकलते हैं कि उनको अप्रेंटिसशिप की जरूरत होती है, इंटर्नशिप की जरूरत होती है। मैं एक जनप्रतिनिधि हूं, मेरे पास भी बहुत सारे बच्चे हमेशा आते हैं, तो मुझे खुशी है कि सरकार ने एक ऐसा प्रोविजन बजट में किया है कि टॉप 500 कंपनीज के अंदर हम देश के करोड़ों ऐसे बच्चों को, युवाओं को अप्रेंटिसशिप की, इंटर्नशिप की एक सुविधा देने जा रहे हैं। और इसमें हमने स्टाइपेंड भी रखा है 5,000 रुपए का, और एक वन टाइम असिस्टेंस हमने 6,000 रुपए का भी रखा है। इसी प्रकार जो युवा अपने पैरों पर खड़े होना चाहते हैं उसके लिए हमने मुद्रा लोन के तहत जो तरुण श्रेणी थी उसमें 10 लाख को बढ़ाकर 20 लाख भी किया है
जी।
इसी प्रकार महिलाओं को हम कैसे आर्थिक भागीदारी सुनिश्चित करें उसके लिए 3 लाख करोड़ का हमने प्रावधान किया है। गरीबों के लिए हम 3 करोड़, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर पर, एनर्जी सिक्योरिटी पर, इन सारे विषयों पर हमारी नजर है। तो कुल मिलाकर अगर देखा जाए तो सरकार का जो ये बजट है ये एक बेहतर रोडमैप प्रोवाइड करता है कि जिससे हमारा जो एक बड़ा विजन है कि देश 2047 तक एक विकसित भारत बने, उस दिशा में हम आगे बढ़ रहे हैं।
जी, अनुप्रिया जी, अनुप्रिया पटेल, MOS हेल्थ एंड फैमिली अफेयर्स, थैंक्स अ लॉट फॉर स्पीकिंग टू CNN न्यूज़ 18। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद आपके समय के लिए।
बहुत धन्यवाद।
Let me also go across to some of our other guests joining us. Mahima Singh, spokesperson of the Congress Party. I will be joined with Sanjay Nair, President, ASSOCHAM, Gurcharan Das, commentator on economy, and Sunil Alag, market strategist and managing director of SK Advisors, joining me in the studio as well. Let me take a quick comment from both of our studio guests before I go across on the other side as well. Sunil Alag, any criticisms out of what the budget was presented today?
You know, Mr. Modi planned certain things for India when he thought of India first. Now, why are we assuming that he has made any changes in that? Why not assume that, look, he has made this plan, whether he's got X number of seats or he's got Y number of seats.
He's going to continue on that path.
He's going to continue on the path of growth.
You're saying, Gurcharan Das, would you agree that the verdict has had no impact in how the government, Modi-led government, delivers the budget?
I think it has had some impact, and the impact has come because all the surveys suggest that people there was an undercurrent of anxiety about jobs. So this is the first time we've had this. We had good budgets in the past, fiscally prudent budgets with capex, infrastructure investment, but this is the first time the focus on jobs. Which is absolutely right.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely right, because for 30 years India's had a 6% growth rate. Now for a democracy this is terrific. But that 6% hasn't delivered the jobs. And why? Because we have only fired 2 out of 3 cylinders. The manufacturing driver has failed us. Now I see there's a realization. There's a realization that if you want to go to the next stage of Viksit Bharat,
you have, the reality
is that, I mean, we are one of the fastest growing economies. We have created the preconditions for an industrial revolution.
Okay.
And no country, if you see the last, you see all the Asian tigers who have become middle class societies from poor countries, they've all did it on the back of
manufacturing.
labor intensive, export of labor intensive manufacturers. Therefore, what I missed in this, I mean, there were very good things, and I can tell you, we can go through the details of this, what they did. But I would have liked Nirmala Sitharaman today to have made a kind of policy statement that Manmohan Singh used to make as a part of the budget, which was to go how. In other words, a policy statement saying that this is the direction we have to go, and this we are setting up a task force for this labor intensive manufacturers.
And
how are we going to become an exporting nation? All these things, areas that we have failed.
Sunil Alagh is shaking his head. Why?
No, I'm shaking my head because of the budget is only for 6 months. She's going to present another budget on 1st of February. How much more we can ask for the moon?
No, but
Okay, now
Sunil,
one
I think
second,
he's
let me
asking
finish.
for a
Let me
policy
finish.
direction.
The policy
Yeah,
direction
exactly.
she has stated, first and foremost in this budget, which is a policy direction. It's a budget which has laid on employment. It was always a question in India whether you have or you don't have employment, because 20 to 30 years of the age group, they don't save money, they spend money. So I've been saying all along, how does consumption expenditure go up and how does this go up? Because that's what Mr. Modi is for.
Okay, maybe you could argue that it's Narendra Modi who outlines the policy per se.
Yeah, he does,
In
he
many
does.
of the statements
but-
he makes.
yes, but-
Sir, I'll just come back to you and just give me a couple of minutes. Sanjay Nair, President ASSOCHAM, is also with us. I want to go across to him on the big issue of jobs, skilling, and job creation plus employability. Getting the right skill set for the right jobs and mixing that and creating the amalgamation that you need. Did you see enough in this budget, Sanjay, for that to happen? Because by and large, the biggest criticism is, despite all the schemes, the gap is not reducing.
I think you have to start by looking at the thrust on MSME, which I think Gurcharan mentioned, and seriousness about manufacturing. It's the only way you increase jobs. So I think there's a lot of focus. So I won't repeat that. In terms of bridging the gap, I think the incentives, which is what the industry normally reacts to, have been quite targeted. If you look at the internship program, you look at the employer benefit, you look at the employee benefit, in a way, I think they're putting a little bit of the burden on the private sector. Okay, you've been asking, here you are, let's see if you can do your part of the role. And I think that's the way it's got to play out. But finally, you know, it's got to come down to cost of doing business in India and ease of doing business in India. And she has made promises, and I think maybe Gurcharan, no, I think Sunil said that 6 months to next budget. In 6 months, if we can simplify taxation, which they have said they will look at, the IT Act of 61, they will look at GST simplification and try to resolve all the issues. Some early signs of depenalization and decriminalization. I think that's going to be a bigger boost for SMEs to spend more. And of course, there are lots of schemes like guarantees for CapEx and for stress times and mudra loans for larger numbers. So it's a pretty comprehensive package where they're attacking all the vectors towards the MSME and to grow manufacturing. But ultimately, it'll boil down to the execution on the ground. And that's the simplification, regulations, compliances, and want to do business. I want to put more CapEx. Yes, consumption gap is still there, and we can address that later. But I can tell you, India is a huge market. Why would the Indians not invest more in it? So, no, that's, I think, the key. And I think that should be visible in 6 months. Sunil, if that doesn't happen in 6 months, then I think the next budget can't help. So 6 months, I think
I fully
just
agree with
simplification.
what he's saying.
Yeah.
So, but you know, Sanjay, you said that some of the burden the government wants the industry to take. Is the industry
Sure.
ready, willing, happy to do it? I've been
See,
hearing about this industry investment cycle kicking in
Yeah.
every year, but it still hasn't kicked in.
I agree. And I don't think it's an issue of cost of capital, the way the equities are booming. And with this kind of a fiscal policy, hopefully interest rates will come down, at least in the open markets. So cost of capital is not the excuse. Leverage on balance sheet is not the excuse. So it's something else. And I think, you know, I'm not an industrialist, but I have lots of network. And I think, and our own association with Chambers of Commerce, it's about ease of doing business. And I think it has reduced, it has increased significantly, but there's a lot more to go. The number of compliances, I mean, 33 categories of TDSs. These are easy to like just kill. This is a very executive-driven government, okay? They can get things done. I think they should do it. 6 months should be taken as the base setting. And then from next year, you begin to do some real heavy lifting to get to 8% growth. So I don't think we have anything which the private sector needs now. They just need to crowd in and they need to come in. There's no short of financing. They're not short of animal spirits. Now, only thing lacking, is that consumption still needs to pick up. And this budget has not taken an easy way of just giving a consumption stimulus, which is always very, very kind of evasive. It comes and it goes. So they've taken a much longer, arduous route. Go with jobs, sustainable income, disposable income, and hopefully consumption. So it's a longer, arduous, but a much more sustainable way of doing things. So, people have to get ahead of consumption and put in capex. And I think MSMEs will do it. You know why? Because they are a cog in the wheel, supply chain, exports. There's everything going for them. We know so many foreigners who want to come to India to put factories here, to make in India, export from India. So the MSMEs, SMEs, and the Indian private sector has to jump in now.
Yeah, there's some tax relief in the new tax regime as well, up to about 17,000 rupees for the beneficiary. Let me very quickly get in our Congress representative, Mahima Singh, who's also joining us. Mahima Singh, the Congress wants to take some credit of some of the internship programs, skilling work that the government is focusing on. But the government would say we've always been very interested in this, and this has, this is something that we've always been doing. Your first response?
Jai Hind, Shivani, we have heard the experts speak. Now let me give you a commoner's perspective. And a commoner is viewing the budget 2024 as a futile attempt by an insecure government to paint a very dreamy picture of the future, that too with borrowed colors, because it knows that saffron is not going to be enough on its own, because it knows deep down inside that the public, the common man of India is looking at Nyaya, is looking for justice. And we spoke of Yuva Nyaya in our manifesto, which we call the Nyaya Patra. Now, if you say that we are trying to take the credit, sorry, you go and talk to a youth on the streets, they will tell you what Pehli Naukri Pakki was all about. They will tell you, we talked about the waivers of loans. They will tell you how we talked about the employment-linked incentives, which the government has clearly borrowed, and there's no flaw with it, especially when the finance minister herself, when she had not even probably taken a vague look at our manifesto, she came out and said, and she questioned the feasibility of our schemes. She said, how are they going to do this Pehli Naukri Pakki? And here she is. So, but what we did not find in this budget was a mention, we did not find a mention of what measures is the government planning to take to fill up the gulf, ever so widening gulf of inequality. We did not hear.
Mahima, I'm going to come back to you on that. I'm going to come back to you on that. You are here with me for a longer period of time. Just 1 second. I'll come back to you. You're here with me for a longer period of time. In fact, your colleague from the Congress party, Manish Tiwari, is joining us now live. I want to go across to Mr. Tiwari as well. Thanks a lot for your time. So, the Congress's first message has been, look, we've been telling you that jobs and skills, these are the big challenges for the Indian economy. Do you find sufficient measures in this budget, even if, they were to take a leaf out of the Congress's promises, that take care of those concerns?
Thank you very much, first of all, for having me on your show. I do these things very non-often now. But I look at the budget from a completely and absolutely different perspective. For me, a budget is nothing more than an accounting statement. So it's the income and expenditure statement of the government. The rest is that it is a once-in-a-year opportunity for the finance minister to grandstand on everything from motherhood to apple pie. So therefore, if you look at it in pure accounting terms, the fact is that you are running almost a 16.5 lakh crore deficit. And your national debt has almost touched 172 lakh crores if I go by the figures which are available in the budget documents. So under those circumstances, essentially, there are two things which are happening. A, your deficit post COVID-19 or in the aftermath of COVID-19 is not coming under control. And number two, what is consequently happening is that you are borrowing in order to finance revenue expenditure. You know, the finance minister or the finance ministry has been unable to answer a very simple question, which I've been asking. In fact, I asked it yesterday also. It's in the list of unstarred questions. That out of the almost 112 lakh crores, which has been the increase in borrowing between 2014 and 2024, how much has gone to towards capital expenditure or towards asset creation? And there is a very fuzzy answer with regard to that. So therefore, under those circumstances, what really worries me is the fact that there seems to be no tangible attempt to really bring the deficit
But
down.
Manish Tiwari, some would argue that the fiscal prudence of this government, not just, let's say, in this budget, but over the last 10 years, has been their crowning glory, despite so many domestic pressures and international pressures.
Well, if fiscal prudence has been their crowning glory, you know, how do you account for the fact that the national debt in 2014 was 55 lakh crores, and today the national debt hovers at close to 169 lakh crores or 170 lakh crores.
Shouldn't we look at it at percentage terms?
But you should not look at it in percentage terms.
Yeah,
because
go ahead.
there is intergenerational equity involved. You are actually leaving this debt for future generations. So that's one part of what is problem with this budget. The second part of the problem with this budget is, you see, on the ground, there are three things which are playing themselves out concurrently. There has been stubborn food inflation now for a very, very long time. And in fact, I was quite amused to read the economic survey, which said that when the RBI takes a call on interest rates, it should actually leave food inflation out of that equation. I mean, that's absolutely laughable, because that's something which hurts households the most. Number two, during the elections, two things which played themselves out. In every election campaign across the 543 constituencies was the fact that there were no jobs. But, inflation and unemployment were the two big things which played themselves out. I have not closely looked at what is the Manrega allocation this time, but again, over the past 10 years, Manrega allocation has gone up 3 times. It was around 30,000 odd crores. In 2014, it went up to 91,000 odd crores, if I remember the figure correctly out of my head during the last budget or the interim budget figures. And so therefore, this points towards very acute rural distress. So in rural India, if people are willing to work at what is called the DC rate or the minimum wage, it points to a very, very high level of rural distress. And so therefore, what I found in the budget was really a lack of imagination, a lack of vision, a lack of understanding, or in fact, complete denial about the real problems or the real challenges which this country confronts.
All right. I'll leave it at that. Manish Tiwari, I do thank you for your initial comments on the budget presentation today. Let me take a few reactions from both Gurcharan Das and Sunil Alagh, who've been itching to come in on what the Congress spokespersons and others were saying. I didn't think I'll hear about deficit issues, but on food inflation, the economic survey said that some prices are high. By and large, it's under control. On Manrega, I think the allocation was about 60,000 crore. And for the coming financial year, it's 86,000 crore. But I think the economic survey also mentioned there that don't look at Manrega as the indication for rural distress? Because states where there is high rural distress or unemployment, rural unemployment, they're not spending as much out of their Manrega quota. So maybe not the direct correlation or causation there. Yes, Gulshan Das.
Well, I happen to think differently from this, but it's right for him to point out that India's debt is high.
Okay.
But you know, exactly. I think it's how you see the glass of water, half empty or half full. The reality is that I think most people would agree that the fiscal deficit since COVID, it's been coming down. It's in the right direction. It was budgeted at 5.1. We're going to come in at 4.9. Now and we are aiming for 4.5. So this is a very prudent way for the country, and it shows really the sort of a stability and continuity of the policy. And as far as the inflation is concerned, it is food inflation,
Which is higher.
but it is related really to a monsoon.
Weather-related
And if
issues.
you have, and it could easily get reversed, and it's also related to the fact, I mean, it relates to the agricultural economy, where Punjab, Haryana are actually growing the wrong crops.
Yeah.
And therefore, they are not actually, I mean, that's a different story. I won't get into that.
Yeah, but the other thing he mentioned, Sunil Alag, was capex. I mean, I thought even capex is something that the government is kind of, or is it that, you know, we are giving too much credit to the Modi government for this 11.11 lakh crore of capex expenditure when we, you know, when it's not that high?
There's X amount of money which is available. The Congress government will never come out what you need to cut, what you should add. That's what the Congress will say. Look, there's endless debate on this. Now, whatever money has been given to the FM, they've come out with this project. Now, if you want something extra, then you got to reduce something else. I mean, there's no endless money that the government has. So therefore, it is very important that, look, anybody in the opposition comes out with a policy, then they must say that, look, you've forgotten this, but if you reduce this, then you can give this. No point in just saying give this, give this, give this, any amount that you want.
And also maintain fiscal deficit.
And maintain fiscal deficit.
You know,
Impossible.
I think the more interesting point was raised by Sanjay. And I'd like to further that point.
Yeah, sure.
That now it is also the responsibility of the private sector.
Yes.
And I'd like to address that. We were discussing it this morning with Anand and Zaka. And I think the real issue is, as I said, that one engine has not fired, which is manufacturing. And it is essentially the mantra, which China is also employed, is the export of labor-intensive manufacturing.
Yes, absolutely.
So now, if I were in Mr. Modi's place or whatever, I would call Adani, Ambanis and all these guys and say, look, you know, you guys have strong businesses. We need companies to compete in the world market. Let's take garments. Garments where we should have been the king, which we were at one time, are now Bangladesh is doing better.
Bangladesh and others,
so
yes.
to compete in the world market, you need brands. And I think there's very little hope. I mean, our Raymonds and Arvind and all these guys who make brands in India, Park Avenue and so on, they're no place in the world. So I would go ask Indian manufacturers. Now you go to these guys, the big guys. The big guys are Nike, Uniqlo, Levi's, Zara, H&M, Banana Republic, you name it. I mean, Marks and Spencer. And go to them. Look, we can give you we can give you a domestic market, but we can also become
The
real supply. So offer the Indian companies can become what Foxconn is to Apple. You know, that is a route available, because they are also, a lot of them are in China.
Yeah.
And they're looking for China plus one.
You know, it's
so
interesting.
This is perfect. We are in a sweet spot.
We're in a sweet spot. We can do this. Interestingly, the economic survey talks about how while we and the entire world has a difficult relationship with China and how much of China money and others to accept, they're actually saying allow Chinese capital to come in, even if you don't allow Chinese goods to come in. But Chinese capital, if it comes and invests in India, will give you the wherewithal that you need to, to establish these large hubs. And can I very quickly give Mahima an opportunity one more time? Yeah. Because Mahima, you were, I needed to go to Manish Tiwari, your colleague. On the issue of jobs, that is the big focus that the Congress party had. That's the big focus of this budget. So should the Congress be complaining at all? You can take the credit, but certainly the government has listened to you or to critics.
Yeah, it's a compliment to you, for God's sakes.
Too less, too late, Shivani. In fact, if I were to say it in a poetic style, I would say किसी भी क्षण बगावत के लिए परचम उठा लेंगे करोड़ों हाथ जो इस मुल्क में बेकार बैठे हैं. That is why the government had to now listen to the opposition, because it has seen what it has lost in 2024 elections. But what we are not seeing is what is this government planning to do about the inequality, which is worse than when it was during British Raj. The inequality during British Raj was better than it is now. You see, the country's total wealth, the country's total 40% of total wealth belongs to just a few chosen ones, crony capitalist friends of the Prime Minister. That is what our leaders keep on pointing out time and again. We did not hear about census. What does the government plan to do about census, or are they totally not concerned with what the common man of this country you see deserves? If you're supposed to figure out what share does, how much share does belong to whom, you've got to count. And it is for the first time in the history, Shivani, that there's not been a census for over 10 years, and the government is not even talking about it. It's not uttering the word census at all. And you see, there have been schemes. There are more than 800 schemes which are lying, which have been announced over the past 10 years, but they have not been effectuated. Again, there's no data on how these these schemes have been executed. There's no data on
execution. Is that the
the
major issue? We've been discussing that. If execution is the main issue when it comes to kickstarting the private investment cycle, or with skills, job creation, getting the right talent in the right industry, etc. I have to slip into a very short break. I do want all of our guests to just stay with us for a bit. More experts and special voices will be joining us. A very short break right now. Thanks a lot for staying with us. Lots of discussions kick-started after Nirmala Sitharaman presented a 7th consecutive budget earlier today. And no doubt, the big focus was on skilling and job creation. Now, the Congress has been criticizing the NDA governments over the last 10 years precisely on this front. A lot of the political battle for 2024 general elections was fought exactly on this. So has the government hit the mark or not? And can this budget truly propel us to the Viksit Bharat vision is the big question we're debating right now. Let's continue to go across to our guests. Some more special guests will be joining us. So Sunil, the Congress's criticism was inequality in India. Would this budget, with its skilling, with its focus on job creation, helping young people earn better, earn more, will that take care of it? Or is that, or is the focus too much on, the educated elite still? Let's say the inequality also comes from those who are not seeking exactly these jobs or internships in top 500 companies.
But the unskilled worker, they've increased on infra spending. Now, unskilled workers are going to be required there, and therefore infra spending, building roads, building ports, 3.4% of GDP is going to be spent there. So whether you spend money there unskilled, now skilled workers were there and you're giving them, now instead of calling it internship, they should have called it employment. Now CSR, they've included this amount. They're actually incentivizing government and they're incentivizing private sector to come into this thing. Now at best, the opposition could have said, you've taken our ideas. Yes, but Mr. Modi is a man who is going around implementing for the nation. That should have been their criticism. Maximum criticism was there. But they are criticizing and they are saying you should have included this. And I have come back and I said, look, 100 rupees is all that she had for 6 months. She's done X amount. Now, if you think you've got a better idea, then say so. And you're going to reduce something.
On the issue of census that Mahima raised, we will try and get a political response to that. But maybe this was something, as you said, Sunil, you very rightly pointed out, this is a budget for 6 months only. There was an interim budget 4 months ago. So maybe in the next budget, we can look forward to
February, when she
something
gets a full year.
That's a full year that we can outline.
She will evaluate what she's said, suggested, whether
Mr.
it
Das,
works
you
or
wanted
not.
to come in very quickly before I go across to Mahima again?
Well, I just wanted to say that, that I wish we would stop talking only about inequality. Because, frankly, what the country needs is opportunity. And how do you get rid of inequality? You can do it by the Marxist way, to take control of all, remove all jobs from the private sector and turn them to the government, and you'll get equality.
A certain level of equality or certain kind of equality.
So the idea of soaking the rich to make the poor rich, to make the poor better off, is not, we found historically doesn't work. So the only way that we have found in a democracy is through the market, and the market creates jobs. Now, it's not easy to understand that. It's not easy to understand that millions of people who are working for their own profit ultimately lead to the rise of the whole society through job creation. But job creation is what I call opportunity. And therefore, that's at the heart of this budget
is job creation.
And so it's the heart, removing inequality or answering inequality is at the heart of this job. Otherwise, you can keep talking about from the rooftops, about
so,
inequality.
Mahima, the message possibly is that, okay, not everything was hunky-dory to begin with, and there has been criticism, and the government is responding. Maybe we don't need to be pessimistic so much to the extent that we call it too little, too late. We are a young country, we are a robust country, our macro parameters are very much, safe, stable, the outlook seems to be very good. Yes, there are issues, and every year, this is what this exercise is for, to fine-tune what we need to do.
With due regard to the wisdom of all the panelists, Shivani, I must say that it is very convenient to call constructive criticism pessimism. You see, we have been criticizing this government for the past whole decade. What we have been telling the government for the past whole decade is that denial, suppression of facts, suppression of data is not going to help you. Yet what we saw in the economic survey yesterday is the government telling, you have seen in the economic survey that the corporates, the corporate growth is skyrocketing. But there's a dearth of hiring, there's a dearth of, generation of jobs. And the government tells the private sector that it is your primary duty to create jobs. Sorry, that is not the case. We are a welfare state. As per the directive principles of state policy, it is the government's job, it is the government's responsibility to create jobs for our youth, to talk about health, to talk about education.
But not everybody can have a government job.
Thinks that. Why is it the government's responsibility?
No, hold on. I've been very patiently listening
but
to
Mahima, I have 30 seconds only. Just 1 second. I've got some guests waiting, Mahima, so I'll give you 30 seconds, please, very quickly.
So what I was saying was that, now you are saying that the Congress will say you are taking credit from us. Why should we not say that? You read the Congress manifesto and the FM called the
We're saying you should
say it.
No, hold on. But it's a cut, copy, paste in haste, because she herself said it's not feasible.
Okay, all right. Mahima, unfortunately, I've run out of time. I do thank you and our other guests for joining us. I do have to go across to two very special guests now joining us on the show. V. Anant Nageswaran, CEA to the Government of India. Also Sanjay Malhotra, Revenue Secretary to Government of India joining us. I do thank you both, sirs, for your time. V. Anant Nageswaran, I want to come to you first up. There seems to be an acceptance that skilling and job creation were trouble areas or concern areas for the Indian economy. In this budget, according to you, what is the main the main announcement that takes care of these concerns? Mr. Nageswaran, can you hear me?
Skilling and employment. I think I am hearing it very feebly. Maybe I think my colleague Sanjay is here. You can go ahead.
Okay.
You know, the question that let me, try to answer this on behalf of the ministry. The concern, that what is being done through this budget to improve employment opportunities. So a number of efforts, number of announcements have been made. Primarily, first of all, how do we incentivize employment? And for that, there are 3 schemes in which for new employment, a benefit of 15,000 rupees is proposed to be given. Then there is another scheme, especially for the manufacturing sector, where a benefit spread over 4 years of up to 2,16,000 rupees is being given over and above the benefit that is available under the first scheme. So a benefit of up to 2.31 lakh rupees can be availed by the employer and the employee together for new employment. So this is really, one major scheme. Similarly, for skill upgradation, there are announcements for upgrading 100 ITIs. There are announcements for internships in 500 top companies to about 1 crore of candidates, interns. That's going to again spur jobs. Then there are a whole lot of schemes for MSMEs. MSMEs, are the job creators. They are the growth engines of our country. And so over there, a number of schemes, a fund being set up for them. And then similarly on the taxation side, our effort has been to spur investment, both through customs duties, rationalization, reduction on inputs of various manufacturing sectors, like, for example, you have the critical minerals which cater to various sectors.
Right.
You have the diamond sector. You have the marine sector, which is again, very, very highly employment intensive. Similarly, leather and garments. Angel tax, being
Sanjay ji,
removed.
one
Again,
of the concerns
that
has
is
been
for,
that the government has been
investment.
trying for some time to, fix this issue. The issue of good jobs, job creation, employability, skill gap, etc. But all of these schemes over the past few years haven't had the impact that was required on ground. What makes you hopeful that this time around, the onus or the partnership that you want from the private sector also will actually yield results?
No, we are very, very confident that because this time, we are having a whole of government approach. Number one, as I mentioned to you, it is not only, giving schemes and subsidies, but it is also about creating an environment of investment. So whether it is through taxation policies, whether it is through reforms in other areas, including, that by the state governments, we are very confident that this will give a boost to employment. Very innovative scheme of interns, where a partnership is being forged between the industry. It's a very different scheme. Partnership being forged, with industry to create skills in employable sectors.
Okay.
So this all gives us hope that we should be able to really spur employment growth in our country.
Before I attempt going back to Nageswaran ji, I want to ask you about the hopes of the middle class, particularly when it comes to direct taxes. Now, some relief has been provided to those in the new tax regime, benefits up to 17,000 rupees per year. But could more have been done? Why is it that the middle class doesn't really get such a cheer in budget after budget of the Narendra Modi Sarkar? And nothing seems to have changed in 3.0 Sarkar either.
So I did not get your question.
Could more have been done on the tax front? More relief for the middle class?
So first of all, you see, last year also, a huge relief of up to 37,500 rupees was given in the new tax regime. So it's as a result of this change, this huge benefit, 68% of the tax filers have opted for this scheme. Obviously, because they have benefited from this scheme, they see a benefit, that's why they have shifted.
Okay.
Yes, those who are in the old tax regime, they did not get any benefit, and maybe you are asking this question on their behalf, and it is the stated policy of the government to actually move away from exemptions and deductions, make taxation simpler, and so that's why again this year too, year after year, and again this year, you can see that benefits both in terms of increase in standard deduction and change in the tax rate structure
Can I
will
quickly
benefit the middle class.
Okay, can I quickly try and attempt one more time with V. Anant Nageswaran, Chief Economic Advisor as well. So the particular question I want to ask, I was wanting to ask you about the skilling gap, etc. But your colleague has answered that question. So I want to ask you about this indexation benefit on property that has been done away. It seems to have created a little bit of anxiety amongst, a lot of people, and they belong to many, many classes, different economic classes. If you could just comment on why that has been done and, the anxiety that is coming in from the public generally on that. Mr. Nageswaran.
Actually, of course, this question is better answered by my colleague Sanjay Malhotra. But since, of course, he has been taking many of my questions as well, so let me step in and take this question on his behalf. So the removal of indexation should be seen as part of the rationalization and simplification of the long-term capital gains tax. As Sanjay very eloquently explained in a different context, you have to refer to multiple sections to understand your tax rates and the horizon for which you should have held the asset before you could compute your long-term capital gains tax. It was different for debt, it was different for unlisted securities, different for real estate, etc., etc. Now all of them have been brought to 2 years and above, and that's 12.5%. So it is a very, very simple move. It's easy to understand. And remember, for real estate, if you have a return of more than 10% per annum, which is a very reasonable expectation in real estate asset, then the new tax rate of 12.5% benefits you more than having the indexation and yet be taxed at 20%. It's very easy to make the calculation, the break-even point. It is somewhere between 9.5 or 9.6 to 10%. Above that, actually, the lower tax rate under the new system benefits any asset owner than it used to be before. So in that sense, the unnecessary angst about the changeover from the old long-term capital gains tax system with indexation to a new one at a much lower rate without indexation, the anxiety is unnecessary and ill-founded. This is not only simpler but also will benefit real estate asset owners as well.
Okay. I'm out of time. We, Anant Nageswaran and Sanjay Malhotra, do thank you for your time. And we look forward to breaking down more aspects of the budget with you in days to come. That's a wrap on Plain Speak. My colleague Rahul Shivshankar is now joining you with the Hard Facts Budget Special on the other side.